Do you remember 2012, the year the world was supposed to end? Or so we thought. People were stocking up on canned food, theorists were predicting cosmic catastrophes, and Hollywood had a field day turning our collective paranoia into a blockbuster disaster movie. But when December 21st, 2012 came and went without so much as a solar flare, we all breathed a sigh of relief and moved on. Yet, behind all the doomsday hysteria was something much more fascinating. The ancient Mayan civilization and their incredibly sophisticated understanding of time. The Mayans weren't just building pyramids and doing human sacrifices, though yeah, they did that too. They were scientists, mathematicians, and astronomers who managed to map the cosmos and track the rhythm of the universe with astonishing precision, all without telescopes or fancy equipment. Their calendar system, which sparked that whole 2012 panic, is actually a masterpiece of human ingenuity, and it's just one piece of a culture that was way ahead of its time. But how did they do it? What drove them to become such keen observers of the heavens, and how did their understanding of time shape their society? If you think the story of the Mayans is just about predicting the end of the world, think again. It's a story that combines their incredible achievements, spiritual beliefs, and a view of existence that's as complex as it is captivating. So buckle up, because the real story of the Mayan calendar and the civilization that created it might just be more mind-blowing than you ever imagined. When we think about the Mayan civilization, it's easy to picture grand pyramids and a society obsessed with the stars. But to understand how they got there, we have to rewind thousands of years and look at their humble beginnings. The Mayans were an ancient people who made their home in the lush and, at times, unforgiving landscapes of southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. This region, known as Mesoamerica, was where they put down roots and began shaping a world that was uniquely theirs. The Mayans weren't the first great culture in the area. Long before them, the Olmecs had built impressive stone heads and established early urban centers. The Mayans probably picked up a few tricks from these early innovators, maybe some agricultural techniques or ideas for creating ceremonial spaces. Still, the Mayans took these concepts and ran with them, adding their own flair and vision. Their earliest settlements date back to around 2000 BCE. These weren't the bustling cities we'll talk about later. They were modest farming communities, people living off the land and working together to grow crops. Corn, also known as maize, was the centerpiece of their agriculture and culture. To the Mayans, maize wasn't just food, it was life. Their myths even claim that humanity itself was formed from corn dough, which gives you a sense of how sacred this crop was to them. As the centuries rolled on, the Mayans didn't just stick to farming. They started organizing themselves into more complex societies. People developed specialized skills like pottery, weaving, and stonework. Religious practices became more elaborate, and spiritual leaders began to take on significant roles in the community. And it's no wonder religion held such importance. When you live in a world full of natural wonders and disasters, like dense jungles, powerful rivers, and the occasional volcanic eruption, it makes sense to think that powerful forces are at play. Another thing that set the Mayans apart from other early cultures was their fascination with the sky. Long before they built massive observatories, they kept an eye on the heavens. The movements of the sun, moon, and stars played a crucial role in their everyday lives. They were like early scientists, constantly observing and trying to make sense of how the natural world worked. By the time the Classic period rolled around, roughly between 250 and 900 CE, the Mayans had leveled up in ways that would have made any ancient civilization jealous. What started as scattered agricultural communities had blossomed into a network of powerful city-states, each with its own flair, influence, and, yes, plenty of drama. But here's the kicker. The Mayans weren't just focused inward. They were part of a vast, interconnected world, full of trade, cultural exchange, and even fierce competition. Imagine walking into Tikal, one of the most renowned Mayan cities. The first thing you'd notice would be the towering pyramid temples piercing through the jungle canopy, some rising over 200 feet into the sky. These architectural masterpieces were built without metal tools, animals, or even the wheel, just stone tools, ingenuity, and a deep devotion to the gods. Each city-state, like Tikal, Calakmul, or Palenque, had its own ruling dynasty, complete with kings who weren't just bureaucrats. These rulers were semi-divine figures, boasting their achievements through inscriptions and stelae, those tall stone monuments etched with detailed carvings and hieroglyphs. And if you think politics today is cutthroat, wait till you hear about Mayan politics. Rulers constantly had to prove their worth, waging wars, forming alliances, and performing rituals, including blood sacrifices to keep the gods on their side. The political landscape of the Mayan world was a constantly shifting chessboard full of alliances, betrayals, and rivalries. The most famous rivalry was between Tikal and Calakmul, two superpowers whose battles played out like high-stakes games, with smaller city-states often caught in the crossfire. Rulers had to be both cunning diplomats and fierce warriors to navigate the ever-changing landscape. Warfare wasn't just about land. It was ritualistic. Captured prisoners, especially nobles and warriors, were prized and sometimes sacrificed in ceremonies meant to honor the gods. But it wasn't all battles and rituals. The Mayans were also cultural visionaries. Their art was exquisite, from murals that brought mythology to life to pottery adorned with scenes of daily life. Their writing system was unlike anything else in the ancient Americas, a complex script combining glyphs that represented sounds and ideas. They recorded everything from historic events to poetry, making sure their legacy was etched in stone. The sophistication of the Mayan civilization was rooted in their understanding of the land and their connections with neighboring cultures. Trade was the lifeblood of the Mayan economy. Picture bustling marketplaces filled with the chatter of merchants bartering jade, obsidian, cacao beans, and vibrant feathers from the magnificent Quetzal bird. Merchants traveled along well-established routes, linking the Mayans to powerful neighbors like the Zapotecs, Mixtecs, and later, the Aztecs. Trade wasn't just about goods, it was also a highway for ideas. Through these interactions, the Mayans picked up new techniques, artistic influences, and even religious concepts. For instance, there's clear evidence that Teotihuacan, a mighty metropolis in central Mexico, left its mark on the Mayans. Though the specifics are still a bit murky, we know that cities like Tikal adopted elements of Teotihuacan's art, weaponry, and political practices. It's as if they were borrowing and enhancing what they learned from their neighbors. Beyond the familiar Mesoamerican connections, there are even theories of Mayan trade routes stretching to coastal cultures far to the south or across the Caribbean Sea. Although these links are more speculative, the idea of the Mayans as far-reaching seafarers adds an intriguing layer to their story. Despite this network of exchanges and conflicts, the Mayans managed to keep their identity distinct. They developed an incredibly organized society. At the top of the social pyramid, literally and figuratively, were the elite: rulers, nobles, and priests. Artisans, merchants, and warriors filled the middle, while farmers toiled at the base, growing essential crops like corn, beans, and cacao. The farmers were the backbone, ensuring the city-states had enough food to sustain everyone, from the king plotting his next strategic move to the priest making astronomical calculations. The Mayan civilization flourished in a way that was both resilient and adaptable, blending tradition with innovation. They built aqueducts to bring water into their cities, developed an advanced understanding of mathematics, including the revolutionary concept of zero, and created a calendar system that remains a marvel today. More on that later. But the same complexity that made them successful also led to challenges. By the end of the Classic period, the Mayan world had begun to fracture. Hey everyone, just a quick intermission here. I wanted to say thank you for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. Did you know that over 80% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed to the channel? If you've enjoyed this content so far, it would be incredible if you could hit that subscribe button. It's a small gesture, but it really helps the channel grow and ensures that you won't miss any more of our fascinating stories we explore together. Also, if you're feeling generous, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share with anyone else who may enjoy it. Your support really does make a difference and keeps the content coming. Thanks again, and let's get back to the story. Okay, so we've talked about how impressive the Mayan civilization was, but let's get into the nitty-gritty of the proof they left behind, and how this once great culture met its decline. The jungle might have tried to reclaim their cities over the centuries, but the Mayans weren't about to be forgotten. The evidence of their existence is scattered all over Mesoamerica, and it tells a story that's just as vivid and dramatic as any ancient epic. First up, we have the massive ruins of their cities. If you visit places like Chichen Itza, Tikal, or Uxmal, you'll see firsthand how the Mayans transformed the land. These weren't just random clusters of buildings, they were urban masterpieces. Take Chichen Itza, for example. It's home to El Castillo, a pyramid dedicated to the god Kukulkan. This structure is an architectural wonder, designed so that during the spring and autumn equinoxes, a shadow resembling a serpent slithers down the pyramid's steps. This wasn't a happy accident. It's a testament to the Mayans' understanding of astronomy and engineering. Then there are the stone monuments that dot many of these sites. These monuments are like ancient billboards proudly announcing victories in battle, royal bloodlines, and major events. Some even include precise dates, thanks to the Mayans' obsession with tracking time. These carvings have been a goldmine for archaeologists and historians, giving us a clearer picture of Mayan history and politics. Speaking of writing, as we mentioned earlier, the Mayans developed one of the most complex scripts in the ancient world. They didn't write novels, but their inscriptions and texts cover everything from religious ceremonies to historical records. The Mayan script is a system of glyphs, some representing sounds, and others representing entire words or concepts. Although much of their writing was lost, thanks in part to Spanish conquistadors and missionaries who burned many Mayan books, we've managed to decipher a good portion of it. A few surviving manuscripts, like the Dresden Codex, have given us invaluable insights into their astronomical calculations and rituals. Even the jungle itself can't hide the scale of what the Mayans achieved. LiDAR technology, which uses lasers to map the terrain beneath dense vegetation, has revealed entire networks of roads, city layouts, and even more structures than we'd previously known existed. Every new discovery seems to add another layer of depth to our understanding of the Mayans, proving that their civilization was even more interconnected and complex than we'd imagined. But for all their achievements, the Mayan civilization was not immune to decline. The fall of the classic Mayan civilization around 900 CE remains one of history's great mysteries, but scholars have pieced together some likely factors. Environmental challenges played a huge role. The Mayans relied heavily on agriculture, and deforestation combined with soil depletion likely led to food shortages. Evidence of prolonged droughts has also been uncovered, suggesting that changing climate conditions made it harder to sustain their massive populations. Political instability made things even worse. Rival city-states were constantly at war, and when resources became scarce, these conflicts grew even more brutal. Overpopulation, combined with the strain of never-ending battles, caused societal stress. As if that weren't enough, internal rebellions and the collapse of key trade networks would have made it hard to keep the civilization running smoothly. The decline didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual unraveling, city by city. Some regions were abandoned entirely, with the jungle swallowing once thriving metropolises. Yet, not all Mayan centers vanished at the same time. The northern Mayan cities like Chichen Itza continued to flourish for a while longer, even as the southern cities faded away. When you think about the Mayans, picture a civilization that didn't just leave behind stone ruins, but a legacy of art, science, and writing that continues to intrigue and inspire us. And while their grand cities may have fallen silent, the spirit of the Mayans lives on, in both the knowledge they left and the descendants who carry on their traditions. Now we get to the part that probably put the Mayans on your radar in the first place: their incredible calendar system. You've heard the rumors, the doomsday predictions, and the stories of how they tracked time with almost supernatural accuracy. But the real story of the Mayan calendar is even more fascinating and a lot less apocalyptic. The Mayans didn't just have one calendar, they had a whole system of interlocking cycles that guided everything from daily activities to religious ceremonies. Let's break down the basics, starting with the Tzolk'in and the Hab. The Tzolk'in was a 260-day ritual calendar made up of 20 periods, each lasting 13 days. Why 260 days? It's still a bit of a mystery, but some theories suggest it could be tied to the human gestation period, agricultural cycles, or even the movement of the planet Venus. Whatever the reason, the Tzolk'in was the spiritual heartbeat of Mayan life, dictating the timing of religious rituals and ceremonies. Each day in the Tzolk'in had its own unique combination of a number and a named day, and each combination held spiritual significance. Priests would use this calendar to determine the most auspicious days for everything, from planting crops to declaring war. Then there's the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar that's much closer to what we use today. It was divided into 18 months of 20 days each, plus a short 5-day period called Wayeb. The Mayans considered these final 5 days unlucky, a time when the boundary between the human and spiritual worlds blurred. People would stay home, avoid travel, and perform rituals to ward off any bad luck that might seep through during this unsettling period. These two calendars work together in a system known as the calendar round. Picture two gears interlocking, one representing the Tzolk'in and the other, the Hab. The same combination of a day from each calendar wouldn't repeat for 52 years. To put that in perspective, a person born under a specific combination of the Tzolk'in and Hab would celebrate their next calendar round birthday at the age of 52. This cycle was used for everyday activities and played a significant role in the rhythm of Mayan life. But wait, there's more. The Mayans also used the long count calendar, a system designed to track longer spans of time. While the Tzolk'in and Hab were great for marking short-term cycles, the long count was like the Mayans' version of a cosmic clock, used to record history on a much grander scale. It worked like a linear timeline, starting from a mythical creation date that scholars have traced back to August 11th, 3114 BCE. From that point, the Mayans counted the days forward using a series of units called baktuns, katuns, tuns, winals, and kiins. The long count was especially important for recording historical events and astronomical phenomena. Kings would carve important dates into stelae, or write them in codices, essentially saying, "Here's when this happened in the grand scheme of things." And because the Mayans were so precise with their calculations, they could even predict future eclipses or the movements of Venus. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, the 2012 end of the world myth. 2012, the year the world was supposed to end. Or so we thought. You probably remember the documentaries, articles, and even big-budget Hollywood movies that ran wild with the idea that an ancient Mayan prophecy foretold an apocalyptic event on December 21st, 2012. It felt like everyone was bracing for doomsday, but what was really going on behind all that hype? Let's untangle the myth from the reality. It all started with the long count calendar, which, as we discussed in the previous chapter, was one of the Mayans' ways of tracking long spans of time. This calendar marked significant periods using baktuns, each one lasting roughly 394 years. According to the long count calendar, December 21st, 2012, marked the end of a 5,125-year cycle, specifically, the end of the 13th baktun. Somewhere along the way, the idea that this date represented the end of time began to snowball. New Age thinkers, conspiracy theorists, and even some well-meaning but misguided historians took this idea and ran with it, interpreting the end of the 13th baktun as a prediction of an impending apocalypse. Visions of planetary alignments, global catastrophes, and even cosmic collisions were conjured up to explain how the end would unfold. The media latched onto these wild theories, fueling a wave of anxiety and fascination that swept across the world. But here's the thing, the actual Mayan perspective on December 21st, 2012 was way more grounded and way less terrifying. To the Mayans, the end of a Baktun wasn't about the world coming to an end. It was more like hitting the reset button, a chance for renewal and the start of a new cycle. Just like we celebrate a new millennium with fireworks and resolutions, the end of the 13th Baktun was a moment to reflect on the past and look forward to the future. It was spiritually significant, sure, but not in the doomsday sense. So where did the apocalyptic interpretation come from? Part of the confusion stemmed from Western misunderstandings of Mayan culture and mythology. Some scholars and writers took the symbolic language of Mayan texts too literally, misinterpreting references to endings and transformations. Others simply exaggerated for dramatic effect, because let's be honest, "The world is ending" is a way better headline than "An ancient culture marks a new era." The Mayan elders and communities were pretty baffled by the whole thing. Many of them spoke out, clarifying that the end of the 13th Baktun was a time of spiritual renewal, not annihilation. They explained that the Mayan view of time is cyclical, meaning there are always endings, but also new beginnings. The world had gone through many cycles before and would continue to do so. In a way, the hysteria around 2012 turned into a teachable moment, highlighting how little most of us knew about the sophistication of Mayan timekeeping. When December 21st, 2012, finally arrived, it was a regular day. No planet-shattering earthquakes, no fiery skies, just a bunch of relieved folks realizing they'd made it through yet another supposed doomsday. In places like Guatemala and Mexico, however, Mayan descendants held ceremonies to mark the occasion. They gathered to honor their ancestors, give thanks, and express hope for the future. It was a celebration, not a funeral for humanity. Looking back, the 2012 phenomenon says a lot more about our own fascination with the end of the world than it does about Mayan beliefs. It's a reminder that we should be careful about how we interpret ancient knowledge, and that we often underestimate the wisdom of the civilizations that came before us. So while 2012 may have been a year of anxiety and drama for some, for the Mayans, it was just another chapter in the long cyclical story of time. The Mayan civilization may have fallen centuries ago, but their impact still echoes today. Its influence lives on through its incredible architectural feats like Tikal and Chichen Itza. Their advancements in mathematics and astronomy, including the concept of zero and their intricate calendar system, remain a reflection of the civilization's brilliance. Mayan descendants continue to preserve their culture across Mesoamerica, maintaining languages and traditions despite centuries of hardship. Even the 2012 phenomenon, though rooted in misinterpretation, sparked a renewed interest in their achievements. The Mayans' legacy is one of ingenuity, resilience, and a profound understanding of the universe that continues to inspire.